What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to Fantasy Nuts UK, a late night fantasy football show here on YouTube. Last week, I hosted a 18-team best ball draft and had Dolphins fan Andy Davis jump on for a bit to discuss the draft as we was drafting and tell you a little bit about what he's up to at the end of the month when he goes out to the States. If you want to know more about what he's up to, then head to our channel, subscribe, give that video a watch. But we are back and football is back. Week 1 is in the books and week 2 is just around the corner now. And tonight we are going to discuss the winners of week 1 and look ahead to week 2. Now, without further ado, my guest this evening, he's the co-host of the 5 Yard Dynasty pod and the co-founder of the UK FFC. You can find him on Twitter at the FSA Tweets. It is Liam Humpage. How are you doing, Liam?
All good, thanks, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, all good, all good. Great to have you on here.
It was a crazy first week, wasn't it? I mean, like we saw some of the rookies go absolutely out. We saw a guy that we'll be talking about a bit later, Carson Wentz, have a QB3 week, which I'm sure no one in the offseason thought that it'd be the QB3 on the week, at least in week 1. And then we had a very weird game over in Chicago, where Chicago and the 49ers, San Francisco 49ers, had basically playing in a swimming pool, 100-yard swimming pool. Crazy.
Yeah, it was absolutely nuts. I did not think for a second that the weather would impact the game so badly straight away, and it really was. But it was just a bit of chaos all round. You had the Pittsburgh and Cincinnati game go to OT. We had a tie. I think it literally had it all. And Red Zone really on Sunday was fantastic as always. But without further
even better for you.
Oh,
even
yeah.
Better for you as a Vikings fan.
Of course, yeah. But no. Without further ado, let's dive into those week 1 rookie rock stars. So players making their NFL debut that really put the points up for fantasy football in week 1. And I'll kick it off with the overall rookie number 1 on the week, which was Jahan Dotson from the Washington Commanders. Now, drafted in the first round of the NFL draft, of course, but he was falling to the second round of rookie drafts with obviously the mix of running backs and the emergence of like James Cook. As we got closer to the season, he was getting picked up in the first a lot. But he had 2 touchdown catches, which may have saved him a little bit. His volume was about what we expected. He had more catches than Terry McLaurin, 5 targets, 3 catches, 40 yards. But like I say, it was the 2 touchdowns that saved him. It was a shootout, and Wentz had to throw the ball to win. He had 1 carry, but he got stopped 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage. I don't think they'll try and do anything like that too much again. Overall, quite impressed, though. Put up a total of 18 points and sort of wide receiver 2 for the week. And for an NFL debut, you can't ask for much more, can you?
No, but when you're scoring 2 of your 3 catches as touchdowns, that's kind of what you're expecting a good week. So, I mean, my co-host Rich at 5 Yard Dynasty on that pod, he was massively into Jahan Dotson. I kept saying there was a top 5 in this rookie class at wide receiver. He was saying that there's a top 6. Once Dotson was taken in that first round in the NFL draft, I was all on board with Dotson. I mean, I loved the route running, but I was skeptical about the draft capital. As soon as he went around the mid picks in round 1, I was all in. And then, as you said, rookie drafts have been falling. But if you're in a rookie draft with me and I've had a late first, he's not fallen past me because he's my wide receiver 6 in this class. He's been highly touted on the 5 Yard Dynasty pod, but in terms of redraft and last week, Dotson really showed out. I mean, he's a trusted target by the looks of it in the red zone. So it's a shame about that 1 carry for minus 10 yards, but apart from that, he had a great week.
Yeah, and Washington, I believe, they traded back in the NFL draft, didn't they, as well?
Yes,
So
they did, I believe.
they must have had 2 or 3 guys that they would have been really happy with taking when they made the trade back, because it was only a few spots, and to land Dotson and then he shows up week 1, like you say, in with them targets in the end zone. It was brilliant. You can't ask for no more. If you had him on your team, of course. If it was a shallow redraft league, like he might have still been on waivers heading into week 2.
Yeah, he's probably on a lot of people's benches as well. I had him as a guy that I have in a lot of taxi squads in dynasty leagues, just because I didn't think he'd be doing much in the first few weeks. And unless I had some deeper rookies, he was probably the guy that I was also slotting in behind, say, a Burks or something, and putting him on my taxi squad. So a lot of my dynasty teams had 18 points on their taxi squad this week.
Brilliant. So who is your rookie rock star for this week?
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to put Breece Hall in this list. He didn't score that many fantasy points, but he had 10 targets, which is a high target share for a rookie running back. But I'll save that to a little bit later. But I wanted to talk more about Kyle Phillips. Now, he's a guy that he wasn't really that highly or highly touted, I suppose. Coming out, he went to the sorry, I'm blanking. Went to the Titans. Has Kyle Pitts there, and I mean, if you think about has Kyle. I'm all over the place at the moment, Lewis. Don't know what I'm
You're
talking
good.
about.
You're good. You're
Has
good.
Treylon Burks there? Sorry, and Paul at FF Go Ball put out an article on 5 Yard Dynasty yesterday, as of recording, so Tuesday, talking about the rise or talking about the waiver wire pickups, and Kyle Phillips is on there because he had a 27% target share in the Titans game. That is incredible for a rookie. I mean, he ran a lot of his routes out of the slot. I mean, I don't expect a 27% target share every week. So he had 9 targets from the 33 attempts that the Titans did end up making through the air. So although he wasn't a guy that was on a lot of radars, he was the 4th most highest scorer in the rookie ranks. You had Jahan Dotson, Drake London, who you kind of expected to score more than Kyle Phillips, and then you had Isaiah Pacheco as the rookie 3, and then Kyle Phillips. So just a guy that kind of came out of nowhere, and I think people need to pay a bit more attention to him because he's going to get that playing time. He's shown that.
Yeah, certainly under the radar. I mean, with, like I say, those shallow bench redrafts leagues, he will almost certainly be on waivers, or was on waivers. People have probably picked him up now. But with Treylon Burks, they acquired with the Philadelphia pick when they sent AJ Brown the other way, and they they wouldn't be mistaken for doing this. They would have thought that Burks would have had that kind of share.
Well, yeah, you'd kind of expect that Robert Woods, who they acquired from the Rams in the offseason as well, would have had a higher share than he did. I'm just looking for the share now. I mean, I believe Woods only had a 2 or 3% target, 2 or 3 targets on the week, so that's not a high target share whatsoever. Woods had 2, so that's under 10% target share. That you wouldn't expect 9 targets going in the way of Phillips and only 2 going towards Woods. So, he's just a guy that people need to look out for a lot more.
Absolutely right. Let's look at week 2 anyway and make a little bit of a prediction who we think is going to have a better week as a rookie, who could potentially be the rookie rock star for week 2.
Yeah, so I've got Drake London here. I mean, I've just mentioned him as the second highest rookie scorer this week. He only scored 12.4 PPR points. But when I say only, that was without a touchdown. He had 5 catches on 7 targets for 74 yards. I think that's a very good stat line for a rookie who had an injury during the preseason. So he didn't play as much as people would have expected a rookie to play. If he did have that touchdown, you'd be talking, or you'd hear a lot more talk around Drake London. And I can't get past the fact that no one is really talking about Drake London's performance, even though it seems weird calling him an under the radar performance when he scored the second most points in PPR for rookies. But yeah, he's just a guy that I'll be honest, coming out, I worried about his separation skills. He didn't have like a sharpness coming out of his roots. He was a bit more physical, and I worried a bit more coming out that he wasn't going to be able to separate during his route running. But he's proven me wrong within the first game, and I'm more than happy to take that. I believe I had him as my wide receiver 4 in this rookie class, so I'm more than happy to be wrong on this. But yeah, if Drake London has that touchdown, I think that a lot more people are talking about him and running the way that people were starting to talk about Jamar Chase after the first few weeks. As I said, he just looks legit from the snaps that we've seen, and the only guy that outscored him as a rookie was Jahan Dotson last week, and it took 2 touchdowns for Dotson to have to overtake him. So I think that people need to be paying more attention to Drake London's. I suppose it's just not a surprising stat line for him to have.
I mean, Drake London ended up, it was Garrett Wilson towards the start with rookie drafts, but Drake London ended up being my most drafted rookie this year. He was on a lot of my benches week 1, admittedly, because I wanted to see how he would get on. He was carrying a little bit of an issue all week, pretty much building up. But yeah, like you say, a more than steady week 1 for him. NFL debut,
Definitely.
You can't go wrong. But my week 2 that sounds stupid, doesn't it? Not tip. My prediction for week 2 rookie rockstar even. Here we go, mumbling everywhere now. No, I just mentioned
taking
him.
a leaf out of my book.
Is Garrett Wilson at Cleveland this week for the Jets. Cleveland covered DJ Moore extremely well, and it was frustrating the hell out of Baker. I think they flipped their focus from DJ last week to Elijah this week, and Garrett Wilson will kind of have that number 2 receiver role like Robbie Anderson did week 1. Garrett Wilson actually out-targeted Moore 8-7 in week 1. But for me, Elijah Moore is the focal point of this receiving group for the Jets. Anderson caught 5 of 8 for 100 plus and a touchdown in week 1 against Cleveland. Now, they're great and they covered DJ Moore really, really well. But I can see Wilson having a similar sort of game in week 2.
Yeah, I can kind of see the sentiment behind it, definitely. I obviously don't think that Anderson's role is the same as Wilson's, because Anderson's role, me and Rich on the 5 Yard Dynasty pod talked about Robbie Anderson a little bit this week. And Anderson's role kind of got refined and was more deep roots. So as they took away, as the Browns took away a lot of the shorter stuff to DJ Moore, Baker found Anderson was the outlet there. So I don't think Wilson is going to be more of a refined deep ball threat, but at the same time, I do think that I can get behind the sentiment that the Browns will take away another Moore and Elijah in the passing game and leave Garrett Wilson a little bit more open. The concern that I have with the entire Jets offense is how unsustainable last game was. I mean, Flacco had 59 attempts through the air. That is incredibly high, especially for a quarterback like Flacco at the stage of his career. So 59 targets, one is way too high, or 59 attempts is way too high. So I'm expecting that to regress a bit down to 35, 40. But then when you look at the target share that the running back room got, I mean, I already said that I wanted to talk about Breece Hall earlier, so this is it. Breece Hall had 10 targets, that he was their leading receiver. He had the most targets on that team. And then directly behind Breece Hall is Michael Carter with 9 targets. He was tied second with Corey Davis, who also got 9 targets as the leading receiver there. So I really struggle with that RB room getting 32% target share. If they do, I don't know how much room there is for the rest of that offense to essentially eat and score points. So, I like Garrett Wilson. He's probably out of the top 5 or 6 guys. He's probably the one that I've drafted the most of this season in rookie drafts. But I struggle with the amount that Flacco is going to be able to throw because I don't think that he's got many more 60 attempt games left in his career. I do think that the game script will be a little bit different than last week as well. I think that the Jets and the Browns will be a lot more evenly matched or a little bit closer than the Jets and the Ravens were. So with it being a lower scoring affair, I don't think that Flacco is going to have to throw from behind as much. So, yeah, I kind of get that Garrett Wilson is a great player, and I do think that he's going to have a good week. But if that target share doesn't increase and it kind of stays similar to where it is, then I worry about how productive Garrett Wilson's going to be early on in his rookie season.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of went unnoticed a little bit, the amount of targets that Breece Hall got this week.
Yeah.
And like you say about Flacco, he probably didn't even think he'd be starting another NFL game in this point of his career. But anyway, let's move on from the rookies. And what were the standout matches that surprised you in week 1? Which teams, which players produced those fantasy goods?
So I've been extremely high on Patrick Mahomes all the way through the offseason. This sounds crazy saying that you're high on Patrick Mahomes because he's already a top quarterback, but a lot of people were already anointing Justin Herbert above him. And we've got the Thursday night game this week, which is Herbert versus Mahomes. So that's going to be a great one to rewatch in the UK because we're not going to be able to stay up till 4 a.m. like staying up with that game unless you're a fan. So I loved watching the Chiefs offense and another guy that I was massively high on, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, have great games, but that's not who I want to talk about. Who I want to talk about is Carson Wentz, as I mentioned earlier, QB3 on the week. I mean, no one really expected that. He had 300 plus yards in the air and 4 touchdowns. The question mark I still have about Wentz is he always going to have good games but have these like silly issues, I suppose is the best way to put it, silly plays where he's still threw 2 interceptions. It feels like every time he has a game he always has those turnovers or those plays that you kind of wonder what is going on. And I don't know how much I put that down to the Jacksonville defense. I need to go back and rewatch the game properly. But yeah, I think Carson Wentz absolutely shocked everyone. But yeah, I'm kind of in two minds with Carson Wentz because he's always going to have those few plays where you kind of question everything. But at the same time, you've got they're going up against Detroit next week, and Detroit just put up 35 points and let up 38 points. So they were in a high scoring game with the Eagles. If Curtis Samuel is still getting the usage that he got last week, I think Wentz is also having to put up these points to keep up with Detroit. I just question about that defense because Detroit's defense looks, or at least that front looks pretty good.
Absolutely. I mean, Curtis Samuel had a great game himself, and
Yeah.
that kind of underneath receiver, a little bit similar to, but well, no, not really similar in that sense, but like the short option, like he had with Zach Ertz. Ertz is more of a grab and drop guy, whereas Samuel yards after catch.
Yeah.
But yeah, Wentz had a good game. I actually seen Aaron Rodgers get dropped for Wentz in a no bench league earlier.
Wow.
Um, I mean, I did
That's
capitalize
nuts.
on that. Having Dak myself, I jumped straight on Aaron Rodgers. But
That's nuts.
so
I'm
many
wearing the Rodgers
outstanding.
jersey today. That's nuts.
Yeah,
That's absolutely nuts.
I mean, I was it not expecting you to wear anything Green Bay after this weekend, but
I've
so
got to
many
keep repping.
outstanding.
Got to keep repping.
I will try and have a little dig everywhere I can. But so many outstanding performances week one from unpredictable players. But the standout for me is Cordarrelle Patterson. Now, he really showed up this week. 22 carries, unexpected. I thought the usage would be there, but probably more in the passing game than on the floor. And 120 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Only 5 targets and 3 receptions for 16 yards. But Atlanta unleashed him more on the ground, and it worked. They caught the Saints off guard, who they was great last year. They let up the 4th lowest rushing yards per game last year. So for Cordarrelle to go in the backfield, lead it like that, and it was a great showing, I think, from Atlanta. It really surprised me all round, and then obviously bottled it in true Atlanta fashion. But anyway, is there anything you want to say about Cordarrelle from week one?
No, you've summed it up. I had him on the bench in a lot of places because I just wanted to see what week one was going to be, whether it is going to return to what Cordarrelle Patterson's career has been or what last year was. And it looks like it's going to be last year and it's still going to be a thing. So I'm happy for the spots that I do have him in. Again, I'm going to give the credit to Rich here, my co-host, because he was massively on Patterson all the way through the offseason, saying he's going to carry on, and it looks like he's going to do so.
Exactly the same as me. I've got to give Gibbo a little shout out for that one. He was high on him last year as well, and all off season he was beating the drum still. So I did end up picking up a few shares in redraft, and yeah, hopefully it'll pay off. But prediction
I just drafted
time.
him in the redraft extreme league that we're both in. So
You never thought I could
knowing that
grab
we
him
were going to
towards the
speak.
end. But prediction time now. I'm a Vikings fan for my sins or whatever. After a nice, easy game against Green Bay, I think the Vikings will go 2-0 on Monday Night Football in Philly. I'm not sure that Philly will be able to contain Jefferson. I mean, they let up 35 points against Detroit. Nobody knows where Jefferson's lining up. They'll likely put up more points than what Rodgers managed, mostly down to the 2 tackles being out. Dylan flashed. Aaron Jones really didn't get that much of the ball. And the D-line did well, but the Eagles have a more complex system, harder to predict. I'm going to go 30-21 to the Vikings. High scoring, high tempo. Kevin O'Connell offense for the win. What do you think about that game?
Yeah, I think that it's going to be closer than a 9-point spread. I do think it's going to be another close one for the Eagles. Maybe within a field goal. I'm going to take the Eagles here just because I can't take the Vikings again. I in a predictor that a guy over at 5-yard rush does. I did actually take the Vikings to beat the Packers this week, and I just didn't have any hope that would come out in week one and look actually okay. So, yeah, I think for the Eagles game, I struggle because the Green Bay Packers just let Justin Jefferson loose. We didn't put Alexander on him. I have no idea why. We just didn't want to put Alexander on him. I mean, we saw a few plays where Preston Smith was lined up over Justin Jefferson in the slot. just some crazy play calls on defense that I couldn't understand. And I just don't think that with that Eagles secondary and with that D line that the Eagles have, I don't think you're getting the same amount of time in the pocket. I think it's going to have to be a lot more short. So yeah, I don't think that Jefferson is going to go that far. I'll go with a slightly lower scoring prediction of what, say 2023 maybe. Yeah, we'll go 2023. Eagles. I'll go with that. But for my Packers, I don't know. I really don't know. I've got to take the Packers over the Bears, really. I can't say anything wrong against that. I think that after watching the tape, Rodgers will understand that he needs to trust his guys a lot more, not force into Robert Tonyan in double coverage in the end zone on a I think it was a third or a fourth down play. You just can't do stuff like that. So I think he'll be a lot more trusting with his receivers, and they'll have more than, I think it was like 32 yards just to the wide receivers, which is crazy. But the guy that I'm touting highly on is AJ Dillon. Been massive on him for the entire of the offseason, especially in Dynasty. RB10 this week. He was used in the pass game a lot more than people thought in the offseason. So he's also a character that I can get behind. I mean, I was sad when Jamal Williams left and went to the Lions because I love that character. But then AJ Dillon has just proven that he's a great character himself. So, yeah, I think AJ Dillon is going to take this game by storm in Lambeau as well. And we don't really know what that Bears defense looks like because they played, as I said, they played in basically a 100-yard swimming pool at Soldier Field last week. So the Bears are still a really big unknown. But yeah, I'm expecting a Rodgers bounce back game. So great pickup by you in that league. And I think that Dillon's going to be a huge focal point this week.
I mean, I'm fully really happy that we don't have to play for quite a while now because Aaron Rodgers coming back angry.
Yeah,
to
and in
Lambeau
Soldier Field. Well, in Lambeau, sorry, but it would be against the Bears.
against the Bears, another divisional matchup.
Yeah.
Plus, Alan Lazard could be back.
Potentially, yeah.
Potentially. Aaron Jones likely to get a bit more involved, probably. I'm glad I'm not a Bears fan, to be honest, because it's going to be a rough week for them, I think. But our final segment is our fantasy player overall predictions for the following week. So which quarterback across the league is going to ball out and potentially be the week 2 QB1? I'm going Patrick Mahomes.
That's fair enough.
I mean, he showed all the doubters, all the people that was letting him slide. Like, I've seen him go off the board at QB5 and things like that towards the season, and it's just absolutely disrespectful. He's going to be in a shootout. He showed week 1 against the Cardinals that the freak he is, it didn't matter that Tyreek ain't around no more. He utilized Kelsey as he always does. Instant connection with Juju. It's going to be a very high-scoring game. He's going to be throwing it late in the 4th because I think it's going to go down to the wire.
Yeah, I absolutely love this pick. As I said earlier, I think the Mahomes hate got a bit too far because Hill wasn't around, and all of a sudden Mahomes wasn't going to be an elite player anymore because Hill wasn't there. Even though that you could argue that wide receiver room was more complete because Hill wasn't around and the guys that they brought in. But yeah, I love this pick. I think that if I was going to go with the boring answer, Mahomes or Josh Allen would be my guys because Josh Allen is playing the Titans this week. But I'm going to go with Matt Ryan a little bit out of left field kind of thing because I don't want to just pick the top guys every time. He's playing the Jags defense, and as we saw, Wentz just went off against them. So I think Matt Ryan's got a great chance he's shown that he loves Pittman. He's going to be a massive focal point for Matt Ryan in the passing game. And I think that offense is going to be trying to stop the run a lot more. I mean, the Texans, I believe, didn't have a single snap where they loaded the box. And I think that the Jags are going to be looking at that on film and saying that they need to stack the box against Jonathan Taylor, which will leave that secondary a little bit more thin, which leaves Matt Ryan to go to Pittman or Paris Campbell or what's his name, Anthony Doolin or anyone like that. It just means that you can basically let Matt Ryan off the leash, and I think this is going to be Matt Ryan's like come out game in Indianapolis.
I seen that earlier on Twitter, actually, not so long ago, about the Texans not loading the box at all, and I was like, surely not. But I can't remember who posted it, but it is someone quite reputable.
Yeah, I can't remember either, but yeah, it is nuts that it's just not. It didn't happen against one of the best running backs in the league.
Yeah, exactly. But running back, who have you got for your RB1?
So I'm going to go boring answer this time. I'm going to go Saquon Barkley. I mean, he showed that he's back and back with a vengeance as the RB1 on the week. And then he's playing against the Panthers, who Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb just absolutely chewed up from a running back position. I mean, they scored a combined 38.3 points, which would have been running back one if you combine players. And of course, Barkley isn't two players, but he doesn't need to be because there's no one else in that backfield taking any share. I mean, you've got Matt Breida taking 5 carries on the week. I don't think anyone's worrying about that. And then on his 18 carries, Barkley rushed for 164 yards, only 23 less than Chubb and Hunt combined. He also had 12. He also had one more reception on for an extra 3 yards than both Chubb and Hunt combined. I think that Barkley is back. He's back with a vengeance, and against this Panthers defense, who looked like they couldn't stop the combined Hunt and Chubb attack, I think that Barkley is going to have another good week.
Yeah, I absolutely love that pick. You say it's boring because he was an outstanding performer in week 1, but I'm fully on board with that for this week. He obviously showed he was being criminally underdrafted as we approach the season.
Yeah, definitely.
Often dropping second round, if it was super flex, later.
Yeah, definitely.
But I'm going to go with someone else who had a really good week 1, and he was the saving grace of the matchup because it was quite boring. Leonard Fournette. Now, against Dallas, I was expecting quite a decent game all round, and I wasn't really expecting it to be a running back to be the star of the show, but he put up over 120 yards on the ground. He wasn't utilized so much as a pass catcher, but we know he's got that in his locker. And as I mentioned earlier, with Cordarrelle Patterson running all over the Saints, there's no reason that Lenny won't do that in week 2.
Yeah, love this pick. As you said earlier, Patterson got a lot of his usage on the ground, and Fournette could be in that option. The only thing I have a little bit of a worry about is the fact that the Saints seem to have the Bucs number every time the Bucs play. It seems to be a really messy game from the Bucs. I don't understand why. I mean, the Saints D is good. I'm not going to take that away from them, but so is that Bucs offense, and I think that with the big injuries on that O line, that defense is going to be a bit more troublesome, shall we say? So yeah, I like the pick. I think Fournette's going to have a good week, but yeah, I just have that little concern that the Saints are going to just press the Bucs button for whatever reason and become the best defense in the league against the Bucs.
I mean, Brady wasn't fantastic week 1, and he's going to have all of that in the back of his mind. I think he might have a little black book, people he wants to strike off or something like that, and the Saints are definitely in there. Now, however he does it, I do think the Bucks win that game. And yeah. But moving on to wide receiver, Liam, who have you got as your wide receiver one for week 2?
Again, boring pick with wide receiver, even though it's probably the one that probably that, or at least a second position where you could pick upside and potentially get that wide receiver one from anyone. But yeah, I'm going boring, and I'm going to go with Cooper Kupp against the Falcons. That secondary is so not horrendously poor, but it is one of the worst secondaries in the league.
It's bad, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to bash on the Falcons a little bit too much after the way that they played on on Sunday, against the Saints. But yeah, that secondary is not great. My concern for Cooper Kupp isn't actually with him. I think it's more with Stafford, because we've seen that when you get pressure, and specifically natural pressure against Stafford, and that's where you're not blitzing Stafford with 5 or more guys, you're only sending 3 or 4, and you're still getting pressure in Stafford's face. That is when he's at his worst. And we saw that the Falcons pass rush last week got back to the quarterback, so or at least pressured the quarterback. So I think that's my biggest concern. But I think you're expecting a high reception count from Kupp again. He had like 13 targets, an insane number. So yeah, I think Kupp is in for a big game, and a lot of targets, so especially in PPR. He's got a great chance of being wide receiver one.
I think he had 13 catches, and I'm sure it was
Okay, so it might
15
have been
targets.
even more. Yeah.
15 targets. I'm going to go for someone who actually out-targeted Cooper Kupp. Naturally, it'd be easy for me to say Jefferson here, of course, but I'm going Devontae Adams, someone that you probably really miss.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do.
But the thinking behind it with this is not just his stat line from week 1, but Mahomes threw for 360 yards against the Cards last week. 120 plus and a touchdown for Kelsey, 79 yards for Juju. Now, Adams has rekindled his connection with Derek Carr from what they had in college. 10 catches on the 17 targets, like I said, 141 yards and a touchdown. And I expect more of the same, to be honest. He was the wide receiver 3 on the week in PPR. 30 points, give or take. I think it was just over. But more than that, I was really high on Devontae Adams this year. I had him as my number 3 behind Kupp and Jefferson, but it was really interchangeable, just pivoting on who I pick, if you know what I mean, in the first round of a draft. If I was going wide receiver, I would switch it up between the 3. The move to Vegas was actually perfect for him. Like, he was the number 1 target in Green Bay, but he moved to a team where he was still the number 1 target. He's still got a decent quarterback. They still throw the ball first. And I think it was just perfect for him. And he showed why last week, really.
Yeah, my concern around the Vegas Raiders was down to the downgrade at quarterback, because obviously Rodgers and Adams had that great connection. And I was interested to see how that was going to mesh. But and obviously, I don't know how many listeners know this, but the stats for a new wide receiver on a new team, or on a wide receiver moving to a new team, isn't great in week 1. If in the whole of the first season, it tends to take more than 1 season for them to get acclimated. So I was a bit skeptical on Adams for that downgrade at quarterback, and having a head coach that is bringing a new type of offense, installing a brand new offense, and it's a new scheme for Adams. I'm not doubting Adams' football IQ or anything, but what I'm saying is I was wondering how much of a focal point Adams was going to be in a Josh McDaniel type offense. So it was definitely a see it before I believe it type of game, kind of like a Cordero Patterson. I mean, when Adams has 17 targets, and then Waller has 6, Renfro has 6, and no one else has more than that. I think everyone else had like 2 or 1 targets. I think that says everything about the type of offense that the Raiders want to try and run. But yeah, I think that Adams is a great pick. He's shown that 140 yards and a touchdown. He's going to be that number 1 in that offense.
Yeah, he was the target leader by miles. And you say about the downgrade at quarterback, but having those other players, like you had the emergence of Hunter Renfro last year when Waller was banged up. Now you've got Waller back to, he's just signed a deal or just about to sign a deal.
Yeah, he's just signed an extension, yeah.
That takes a lot off his back, because in Green Bay, there was nobody else that Rodgers would use like Adams, even close. Now you'll have other weeks where Renfro and Waller will step up and have more targets and have great weeks as well, which may eat into Adams's usage a little bit. But for me this week, I think it will be more of the same, putting that Arizona secondary to toast. But moving on to tight end, and it was a crazy week for tight ends not named Travis Kelce. So you had OJ Howard as the tight end 2. Taysom Hill, tight end 3. I don't even think if he played any snaps at tight end, but anyway. Gerald Everett as the tight end 4. Will Dissly as the tight end 5. Now, this is a bit of a home pick for me because I have him in absolutely bundles of leagues, but Zach Ertz. Now, he had the niggling injury going into week 1. Wasn't sure if he was even going to play. He saved his day by scoring. But look on to week 2 when they play Vegas. Everett was the tight end 4 in week 1 for the Chargers, who played Vegas in week 1. He's nowhere near as talented as a pass catcher as Zach Ertz. Ertz is higher up the pecking order than Everett is for targets. And Everett managed 54 yards off his 3 catches. Now, Ertz only had 2 catches week 1. I think the injury played more into that. I expect him to kind of pick up where he left off at the back end of last season this week.
Yeah, I've got Ertz in a lot of leagues. I was very high on him coming into the season. So I really like this pick. I mean, if you want to really know how crazy tight ends were for week 1, you had a second Seahawks tight end in Colby Parkinson in the top 8. You have Tyler Conklin for the Jets at tight end 11. Mark Andrews slipped all the way to 12. Then you had random guys like Andrew Beck scoring points that no one had really heard of. Jody Fortson for the Chiefs at tight end 21. I mean, it's not much, but when you've been drafting a bunch of tight ends, and then these guys that you have never heard of before start putting up points, it starts to really come home on that tight end landscape. But yeah, moving over to my pick, Kelce obviously would be the boring answer. And I've predicting that game's going to be a shootout, so Kelce is going to get a lot of targets. But I think tight end is the position that I'm the most confident in taking a punt play in. So as you mentioned, Everett, again in the shootout, and with Keenan Allen not playing, he's a great guy to try and stream if your waivers haven't run or he hasn't been picked up. But I'm going to go a little bit deeper, and it's probably a bit more of a homer pick, but I'm going to go with Robert Tonyan. I think, as I said, Rodgers coming back after a horrible loss to the Vikings, coming back into his home stadium for his first home game of the season, playing against division rival Bears that he owns, in his own words. So I think with watching that film, he's going to see that his running backs can't be the throw every play. He's got to trust his route running receivers, whether that goes to the tight end or the wide receivers. So I'm predicting Robert Tonyan is going to get a lot more looks because he was open a lot more than people expected him to be this week. So definitely a guy that I've been high on all the way through this week, all the way through the off season. And I think Robert Tonyan's going to have a game where he's the tight end 1 this year. But I'm going to call it now. Maybe it's a little early, but yeah, I feel confident in Robert Tunyon being the tight end one this week.
So the season before last, 2020, which was mental in itself because of all the COVID lists and things like that. But Tonyan had a great year, and it was mostly due to his red zone usage. Like, he was the guy that was winning in man when Adams was double covered.
Yeah, he had an enormous amount of points from touchdowns. He had such a high efficiency touchdown catch rating.
Now, if we're looking at Alan Lazard possibly being back, I was out on Tonyan all off season, literally all off season until maybe 3 weeks ago.
You weren't listening to me then,
and
Lewis.
I kind of clicked the button now and again, thinking, all right, I'll take him. All right, maybe it's like my tight end 2 or something like that. But I think if Lazard comes back this week, it will be even better for Tonyan, because that touchdown sort of, what do you call it, when he's only single covered, beating his man, that chance of a touchdown automatically returns, having a wide receiver 1 there that's going to be doubled up.
I absolutely love Tonyan this week.
And it's the Bears. But
and
anyway,
it's the Bears,
thank you everybody that has tuned in again this week, and thank you, Liam, for joining me. And just remind everybody where they can find you and your work this year.
Yeah, so before everyone hops off at this segment, I wanted to jump in and say, go have a look at the @_UKFFC account on Twitter, or UKFFC on Facebook. As Lewis mentioned, co-founder, a bunch of us got together in February this year, still, and got together and decided to hold a UK fantasy football event, and it's going to be an annual thing, with the type of response that we got. Raised £2,000 for the Mind charity in July, and next year's event is already confirmed. It's live. Go get your tickets on either of those accounts. It's on the 8th of July next year, 2023, at Belushi's Sports Bar in London Bridge. So tickets are only £10, and all profits go to charity. But if you want to head over, find my work podcast wise, I'm over at 5 Yard Dynasty, and all of the guys over there do great work. And then if you really just want to find me, I'm at the FSA Tweets on Twitter as well.
Absolutely fantastic. Yes, the UK FFC was an amazing day out for charity as well, which is even better, but it was fantastic. If you never made it this year, I highly recommend getting to Belushi. So get over to him on Twitter. He's scrolling across the bottom of the screen, and get your ticket. But you can follow us on Twitter at Fantasy Nuts UK, and keep an eye out for the next show. But for now, that is that. So have fun for week 2, and we'll see you soon.